At this time on Wednesday mornings, we are joined by medical professionals. I say professionals because we have a series of them that come through from Tripp Family Medicine. Today, actually, it's the namesake himself, Dr. Jonathan Tripp, joining us in studio and call it Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine. You're listening to News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com, and I, Bill Colley, will be answering the telephones because the doctor sometimes stirs up a hornet's nest or two on some of these issues.
Never. I have no controversial points of view whatsoever.
And he's talking today about winter. Actually, today it's raining, but we've gone through some cold weather and probably more snow than we've seen in some recent years. And we're talking specifically about how it impacts people's, we used to call it mood, but some people are very depressed this time of year.
Yeah, no, today is a perfect example of why people that say they hate winter hate winter. It's dark, overcast, the sun comes up really late. Snow, some people say, hey, I tolerate that a lot better than I do rain, or vice versa. But, this morning you got snow that's melting all over the place. So instead of snow, you have mud, and now you got rain on top of that. This is not exactly your vacation destination today.
No.
So this is, I'll start out by giving you all the reasons to feel depressed. But really what we're talking about is how to beat this, how to make winter a good time and, enjoy it and give yourself a little perspective, that spring is on the way, even though we're in January and that doesn't seem possible. But there's a lot of things we can do right now on a daily basis that'll help us get through this a lot better. And not the least of which has to do with lights. So we're going to talk about lights and things you can do and you can eat. And I won't try to tell anybody to binge on anything, but it's really funny. But one of the best uh, mood enhancers is chocolate. And that doesn't mean, you buy the 5-pound Hershey's bar and eat that. It's a little goes a long way, and it actually has lasting effects. It's not just for the next hours, after you eat it. So that's kind of a fun one.
You're talking a little bit about seasonal affective disorder. I won an award actually doing a story about that 25 years ago, but I was shocked at the time by the number of people who it actually impacts. I mean, it's a large number of our neighbors who actually deal with it.
I have a fun statistic that I read as I prepared for today, and that is only about 1% of people in Florida will have any significant what's called, winter blues or seasonal affective disorder. And yet you go to the northernmost parts of the U.S., which would include, northern Idaho, northern Minnesota, things like that, and it's about half of everybody. So if you look next to you, probably either you or the guy next to you already has this, or pretty close where we live.
I think yeah, and you mentioned that I've seen anecdotal evidence. A couple of my friends I went to high school with, they live in Florida now in the area around Bradenton, and they send me all sorts of pictures on Facebook when they're at the beach nearly every day or they're out for a walk and doing those things. And clearly that helps beat whatever the rest of us are dealing with.
It does. In fact, when we get into winter, we want to pull back. We want to, cuddle up, stay inside, and we, basically don't want to do anything. And a big part of that can be overcome by getting up, getting out, and doing something. And that's the hard part is taking the first step to actually do something. I'll tell you what, my alarm clock went off a lot earlier than I got up this morning. And we've been making, I say we because my whole family's been making some pretty significant efforts to exercise, whether it be in the morning or in the evening or both. And that is a huge change in your mood.
Would a trip to the gym do it for a lot of people?
Absolutely. Because whether you're lifting weights, whether you're doing the treadmill or the elliptical or in the swimming pool, any of that produces, after about 20 to 30 minutes, you're producing endorphins that say, hey, I feel good. And not only that, but you feel a sense of accomplishment because you did it. And so it's a 2-for-1 when you do exercise, even if it's going outside and walking. I'll there's lots of options, but I often think of walking, and not everybody can, but for those that can't, dance and ski and, get out and do hardcore physical exercise, just the act of walking for about 30 minutes makes a huge difference in your demeanor for the rest of the day or even the day that follows. So lots of benefits to exercise. A little goes a long way. It does not have to be super strenuous. It's the act of doing it seems to change what's going on in your brain as well as in your mood.
Maybe even break some of your habits too, your daily habits. Maybe go to the mall and see a movie or do something like that on a weekend that you might not normally do. Uh, Maybe helps reset that attitude a little bit.
Something to change things up. It's interesting because I brought along kind of a list of things that do have some study basis behind them, but one I found really interesting is help somebody else. Wait a minute. We're talking about I feel down, I feel, you know, like I don't want to do anything, I have no energy, why would I try this? But whether it's you shoveled somebody's driveway or you went and helped at, our soup kitchen, helped uh, I can't even hardly think all the options, but sometimes it's you just see a need, fill a need is to steal a line from a cartoon movie I like.
We'll put it this way: if you're busy, you don't have time, I guess, to be depressed. We've got more coming up with Dr. Jonathan Tripp in just a couple of minutes. It's 8:40. 34. Well, it was 35, and like I say, the temperature's been ping ponging the last several days as I sit here. But 35 with some rain this morning. We've got more on the way with the doctor in just a few minutes. And if you've got a question or comment about a subject today, feel free to give us a call at 736-0300. It's Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine, right here on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Joining us in the studio, Dr. Jonathan Tripp, Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. And of course, doctor is talking about, well, just some difficulties we have this time of year. And we were just chatting about seasonal affective disorder a couple of minutes ago, and I was telling him, I said, I remember there was a magazine article I saw about this probably way back in the late 80s, early 90s, where a fellow was sitting in a chair and he was sitting by this rectangular light, and it said that it helped reset his mind and helped him get through or battle that depression he might have with what's called the SAD, is the word they use for seasonal affective disorder.
I like the way you say he reset his mind. Does that mean that he got a clean slate and got to start over?
I wonder if a little switch went off.
That's right. When he's done, when it cooks, like the toaster goes bing. So, no, what you're talking about actually is true light therapy, they call it. In fact, they call them light boxes, so that's probably what you were seeing in the article. And they're a special fluorescent light that emits UV rays similar to the sun that basically helps maintain your circadian rhythm. So these light boxes are primarily used in the morning as a way to simulate, the sun coming up, but actually as if you were outside. And they really can change mood, especially for those that are feeling truly depressed with the weather the way it is. That would be a great thing to choose to have at your house, or they have smaller ones that you could put at your desk if you have like a cubicle. Um, you know, some people would probably notice that this week, going back to work after the holidays, that you're surrounded by grouches, or you are the grouch, and that has everything to do with what's going on with weather and mostly what's called your circadian rhythm. Because if you compare the sun when it comes up in the summertime compared to when it comes up now, you have about a 2-hour difference where we live, and if you go farther north, it gets as high as 4 hours difference. I mean, that's the perfect scenario for jet lag, that you're just all messed up. Where do you start? Your body's trying to figure things out. And so as a result, you feel like, well, the sun's not up, I should sleep longer.
Mhm.
And the truth is maintaining what's called good sleep hygiene, meaning you maintain a schedule. You tend to do better if you maintain that schedule, and adding light therapy to that when you first get up for about 30 minutes would be awesome. So, you know, there's some other things that you can do that I'm a proponent of, and that is get your vitamin D levels up. Almost everybody in southern Idaho has low vitamin D. It's funny. I have people say, "Oh, I take 1,000 units a day, or I take 5,000 units a day." Most of those people, when I do the blood work and check their vitamin D, are still low. And so it's not that I'm a proponent of taking mega doses for long term, but part of the therapies I use in my office are higher than what you can get over the counter for a few weeks, and that often changes mood, changes outlook, even a little bit of energy level. And this is, it's not an antidepressant, but it's a vitamin that does very much affect what your mood is like. And vitamin D usually we produce from our skin exposure to sunshine. So you're not getting a lot of that from October till about April in our territory.
That light box, when you were referencing that, I assume that if you prescribe it, that someone could actually get some insurance coverage on it too as well. But it's probably not really an expensive item. It sounds as if it's fairly simple for someone to construct one of those.
They are completely available over the counter. There may be some insurance benefit. I honestly have not prescribed one. I do think they're worthwhile. Um, Maybe we'll talk about putting one up in my office, and make sure everybody's a little happier this time of year.
Yeah, the keep the staff bubbly because now that the holiday is over, where there's not the candy pudding that people have put out and the baked goods and everything else.
Yeah, all the fun foods are gone, and the diets are in process. And so, especially if somebody's doing a low carb diet, they tend to feel even grouchier on top of all the weather and sun effects. So we got to watch out this time of year that if we're making good progress on losing weight, that we aren't doing it at the cost of our relationships. So
People who already suffer from depression or and issues with that on a regular basis, and I guess we used to call it manic depression years ago, and it's got a different name now, but
yeah, bipolar disorder.
bipolar. This has got to be a very difficult time for them when they reach January. It's dark, and that lift they get during the Christmas season is gone, and all of a sudden they're looking ahead to several more months of this. This is where you've got to be worried about seriously suicide prevention and some of those things too. I would imagine.
Yeah, this is a tough time of year for, like we say, almost half of our population anyway. So if you have any kind of depressive tendency, this is a time where it's going to be tough on you. So what's really important is that you take preventative measures and say, let's get out, let's exercise. Let's make sure we're eating truly well balanced diet, not a high carb, not a low carb, not high protein, but really a truly well balanced diet will keep your mood more even instead of the wide swings. Because a lot of times people go to the sweets and, they do have a little bit of a euphoria to them, but an hour later they just drop you like a rock. And so that up and down swing makes it harder. Let me just kind of throw out couple others. Getting outside even though the sun's not out, really helpful. And that what I was talking about, the walking, go ahead, dress up if you're really cold. But a day like today where we're mid 30s and probably pushing up into the 40s, you really only need kind of a light jacket or windbreaker. And if you walk a little bit faster, you'll warm right up and have to make sure you get back inside because you'll build up a sweat, and that's a great thing. I mean, how many people just completely avoid it for days and weeks on end, and then are waiting for May to show up. So I would really encourage getting outside. Now, here's a really interesting one: planning a vacation. We talk about Florida or California or wherever we want to go, the Caribbean, somewhere sunny. And it says, this is one of the research articles. It says, longing for sunnier days at the beach? Research shows that the simple act of planning a vacation causes significant increase in overall happiness. I can relate to that. If I know that the end of February I'm going somewhere, even if it's a weekend trip somewhere, when I'm feeling picked on or the weather's getting me down, I can kind of put my hopes on, oh well, I'm going to do something, later on, and so I can kind of tough through whatever I am feeling down about. So I thought that was funny that there's actually research to show that planning a vacation helps, not even necessarily getting there, but planning it.
Dr. Jonathan Tripp is in studio with us this morning on Tripp Family from Tripp Family Medicine. I'll get that out. We call it Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine. You're listening to News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 8:51. We're at 34 and some rain showers in some spots, or at least a little drizzle. Another thing you have mentioned here is listening to music. Upbeat music may be a remedy.
I to me these seem like obvious things to do, but the truth is if you're listening to you know, I'll even take classical, for example. If you're listening to Mozart, tends to be generally a brighter, faster moving type of music, your mood is improved as compared to something that is, a slower, more minor tune, type minor keys. I think of Dvorak. So there's my two
Mm-hmm.
claims to classical. But it is true if you're listening to upbeat music, whether it's pop or classical, whatever you want. You got smooth jazz, well, you can have really slow, drag you down in the mud smooth jazz, or you can have some pretty fast moving stuff. I have a favorite. The Rippingtons is a fun one, and they're just a big part of why I like them is because they're upbeat and fast moving, and they do help change your mood. I find that whether it's summer or winter, but music is a big part of that. So pay attention to what you're listening to.
My dad, before he passed away, his last few years, he would go to bed listening to new age music, and there would usually be the sound of waves splashing in the background and birds chirping and the like. And some people I know say don't do that while you try to sleep, but he actually said it helped him nod off in the evening.
Yeah, no, I think something like that helps for the relaxation portion. In contrast, if you start your morning like that, you'll want to go right back to bed.
Yeah.
So it does matter what time of day. You don't want to stimulate your brain too much before you go to bed. But if you're trying to get going in the day, brighter lights, getting outside, a little exercise, and why not have some good music to go with it?
Sleep is important, obviously, too, because as you mentioned earlier, you've got to get into that rhythm and you've got to have some a standard where you go to bed roughly the same time every night and get up the same time in the morning. I always found if I was listening to talk radio in the evening, I had a difficult time going to bed. But if I had some light music on like that, it was easier. And something about talk radio got my mind engaged, and I couldn't sleep.
Could it be the controversial topics they were bringing up?
Possibly,
Gotcha. Yeah,
it could well be, but those types of things, I think most of us would never even think about.
yeah.
And then I recognized it simply because I was having that issue in the evening. And when I dropped that talk radio habit, I found it was easier to go to bed. But that's trial and error, I guess, in that situation. But a lot of us have a lot of things we do, I'm sure, that are impacting this.
Yeah, one example, I've been talking about exercise a lot. If you exercise just before you go to bed, most people will have trouble going to bed because exercise brings endorphins into your brain, makes you feel better, more active. In fact, I'll give a great example. When I was about 17 or 18, I was involved in a dance studio. So that's revealing a little bit of my background. But I was taking a particular class because I wanted to learn a certain style of dance and got invited to take a whole lot more classes. And so I was dancing 2 hours a night easily all through most of my senior year of high school. And I was doing early morning activities and other athletics and then starting this about 7:30 at night and dancing till about 9:30 at night. And frequently when I got to the dance studio, I was ready for bed because I was so busy with other stuff. And I found that as I did the dance, I came home at 9:30 more refreshed than before I ever was at 7 o'clock. So you know, if you feel like, oh, I just don't want to do this today, you've come home from, I've worked, and it's 6 or 7 o'clock at night, you know what? Pull out a little old dance video or pull out, a little workout video or go for a walk. And you'll find that after you're done, you'll actually have better energy, you'll feel better. And, don't forget the things you can do with light and maybe even a little bit of vitamin D to help you get through this winter. But I think there's lots we can do getting out, especially if you have a family. Do stuff with the family. It makes it that much more fun.
I believe we have a telephone caller with us. And caller, you're on the air with Dr. Jonathan Tripp.
Yeah, I don't have any problem getting to sleep at night. My problem is the 4 o'clock in the morning brain switch that comes on, and I'm not sure how to deal with that. Take your answer off the air.
Okay. Uh, if I understand correctly, he'd like to sleep longer, is what I think the real
Right,
question is.
right.
And a lot of that can have to do what's going on in your brain. And if you're used to a 4 o'clock wake up because you have, from my past family history, they had to get up and milk cows. So 4 a.m. was when you woke up, even when you didn't have cows. But how to make that sleep last longer? That's a tough one. I know of things we can do prescription-wise and even supplements. But the truth is if you're not exercising, that'd be my number one because if you exercise, you tend to sleep more soundly and for longer periods of time. So that's one I would encourage you to do, even though I'm not telling you to exercise just before bed. That would be a bad move. But melatonin is a great supplement which will help you get to sleep, but usually goes away in about 3 hours. So that will be hard. A lot of people will have trouble waking up early because their mind is spinning and there's actually some anxiety component to what's going on in their life or other stressors. So I'd try to get you to identify what's stressing me, what's playing in my mind that makes me wake up early, and sometimes just identifying what the underlying concern was is enough.
Go to bed later, I guess, too. We've got to wrap up, but doctor, for people who'd like to contact the office, how do they go about that?
Yeah, we're Tripp Family Medicine, and on the web, we're trippfamilymedicine.com. Facebook is also under Tripp Family Medicine. We'd welcome your comments there. And then our phone number is 933-4400. That's 933-4400, and we are located on Fillmore Street across from the post office. And we have same-day appointments for people that are sick. So if you're sick, give us a call.
Went to the post office the other day. I was driving through the parking lot, and I thought, it's got to be Christmas all over again. I couldn't believe how busy it was. But.
Yeah. Well, have a great day and pretend the sun is out and have some fun.
We've got more coming up after news, in fact, from Fox. That's coming up at 9 o'clock. And, of course, you're listening to News Radio 1310 KLIX, newsradio1310.com. Top Story with Bill Colley.